Peace be upon you, everyone. Welcome to the second video of the Mastering course, AI Agentic Engineering with Innate and Platform, the previous video. We covered two examples that explain what an AI agent is, what its uses are, and we went through two very simple examples. And at the end of the last video, we distinguished between LLMs and AI agents. In today's video, we'll also cover a bit of theory so we can better understand what an AI agent is, and we'll also discuss something else, the difference between an AI agent and a workflow based on the paper. That was released by Anthropic. And as I told you, the theoretical information is really important because it will help you later on if you're going to have an interview about this topic, because as we know, nowadays there's something new. It's called AI Agent Engineer, and a lot of companies are looking for people who have experience in this field. In the last video, we covered the definition of an AI agent, and in this video, we'll also have two more definitions, and we want to find out whether these two new definitions today are different from the previous ones or not. Last time, or let's stick to this time, we're saying that an AI agent is basically a digital worker that can sense its environment, think about it, consider what it's sensing, decide what to do next, and then act to achieve specific goals. So guys, this is pretty much the same definition we covered last time, just phrased differently. We got it from a completely different website. So what are we saying about the AI agent here? We're saying that the AI agent, or the employee in artificial intelligence, is basically a worker or a digital worker. It's someone who works in artificial intelligence. They're able to sense their surrounding environment, and based on that perception or based on their understanding of what they sense, they decide what to do next in order to achieve their goal. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's very close to the concept or very close to the definition. What we covered last time, if you remember the example of the car we talked about, we had a car with a driver inside, and we said that the driver, using his own mind, drives the car. The car gives him a set of controls that he starts to operate, like the gas pedal, the brake pedal, and the engine pedal. That's why we said last time that the intelligent AI agent is comprised of, in essence, an LLM and a set of various tools specifically. I hope you review the example in the previous video to understand the definition we're talking about here. The second definition we have for the AI agent is that it's a program that controls the workflow. So what it's saying is that this artificial intelligence agent is basically a set of programs where the thing inside controls the flow of this program. For example, we have a program that's running in this way, like this. So the program's flow encounters something here. Based on the output of the LLM, we determine the path the program will take, whether it goes this way or another way. Depending on the LLM's output, that's why we say the output, or the LLM output, controls the workflow of the program. And we have to mention something very important here. We mentioned before that the LLM only answers a set of questions, as we said in the last slide. In the previous video, which was about things like ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, or Grok, or any of these things, or Llama, all of these things, I give it a question and it answers me. It understands human language, and based on its understanding, it predicts how it will respond to you, right? So that's the LLM. But the LLM can't make decisions, and it can't interact with the surrounding environment. The LLM by itself can't interact with its environment. It needs to have a set of tools with it. And just like before, let me remind you of the example we discussed last time. If, for instance, you go to ChatGPT right now and tell it, I want you to send an email to alias such and such address, it will tell you, I don't know how to send the email. I can give you the email and you go send it yourself. But the AI agent can make the LLM write the email and then automatically send it to the person you want without any control or intervention from you. All right? Okay. This is the definition we took in the previous slide, where we said that the AI agent is basically a collection of programs. And the LLM bot that is integrated into the AI agent is what controls the workflow of this program. Now, some people say that this definition is a bit misleading, meaning it's not entirely accurate. Why? Because up until now, there isn't a very precise definition for an AI agent. Why? Because if we look at real life, we'll find that any system, I could call it an agent, if there is anything that comes first, let's say this system, or the AI agent I have, or let's assume it's just a regular system, and this system is able to call a set of LLMs, just like in any programming language when you call a specific function. It's the same thing here as well. Let's assume we have a program that can call LLMs like ChatGPT or anything similar. It can call them, give them input, and get output back. For example, I can call ChatGPT, which is the model behind ChatGPT, and I can tell it, for example, write me an email. He said that the application you made, or the thing you're talking about right now, we can consider it, right? All right, another thing. He said, if you have one, and it has the ability to communicate with different things. For example, this LLM can communicate with my email and tell it to send an email to someone. Or for example, it can make a decision on my behalf. Or for example, it can make a reservation for me, a plane ticket, and so on. So he said, I can also call this one as well, an agentic system. Okay, the next thing. The third thing he says is, if you also have an LLM that can interact with the surrounding environment, meaning it interacts with its environment. So if you remember the example of the car that we talked about, we said that here there is the LLM, which is the person who was present, and his mind, we called that the LLM. Let's assume this is a car with an AI agent inside it. This AI agent, of course, can interact with the car. For example, it can make the car go faster or slower depending on the surrounding environment. That's what it sees. And this is exactly what happens in autonomous cars. And self-driving cars, they install radars and cameras on them. And through the inputs it receives, it can make decisions and become autonomous, moving on its own, without any human intervention. So, for example, any AI like ChatGPT or anything similar can interact with its surrounding environment and take information from it. And this too, we can also call it an agentic system. All right, a third thing, or rather a fourth thing, they say is that if you have an AI that can, for example, organize things for you, if, for instance, you give it 5 tasks, it can arrange those tasks, make a specific plan for them, set a certain timeline, and so on. This too, we can say, the fifth thing, guys, of course, this means, what does that mean for me? It means it can make decisions on its own without having to come back to you. In other words, without having to check with you. For example, you could set it up so that every morning it reads all the emails it receives, right? And then it can sort those emails for you. Like, these are emails coming from the CEO, for example, or these are emails coming from a colleague of yours. And based on all the emails it receives, it can suggest replies and even respond without having to check with you. Because you told it to, or you programmed it that way. You told it, for example, when you get an email from Ali, you should reply in a certain way. When you get an email from so-and-so, you reply in a specific way, and so on. So now it has enough information to handle things without having to check with you. It's autonomous. We can also take the example of self-driving cars. Self-driving cars are already trained on the roads and everything else, so they don't need to check back with you to take action. For example, if the car is about to have an accident, it stops or pulls over to the side of the road, or even leaves the road entirely, so it doesn't need to check with you. So this is what we call autonomy. And as long as I have something with autonomy, we can also call it an agentic system. Now let's move on to something very, very important. Anthropic released something very important. In an article, they said that any agentic system consists of 2 things, or rather, there are 2 types of agentic systems. These are basically 2 things, something called workflow and something called agents. So agentic systems are made up of, or rather, there are 2 types of them. The first type is workflow and the second type is agents. So what's the difference between workflow and agents? Let's break it down simply, starting with the first thing. They'll tell you that in workflow, you have an LLM, okay, and you have tools. So you have an LLM present, and you also have tools that it interacts with. The LLM is there, but the LLM with tools follows something called a predefined path. So what does predefined path mean? It means that from the very beginning, let's say, for example, I have 3 LLMs, okay? I tell the first LLM, you're going to do the task. What? And I tell the second one, you're going to do task B, and the third one, you're going to do task C. So I've specified everything from the start, exactly what each LLM is going to do. So basically, the LLM isn't going to take any decisions on its own. It's just going to execute the task, that's it, and won't do anything else. The LLM that's assigned to task B will execute that task and nothing else. And the same goes for C. So you have a clear plan from the start. That's for the workflow. Now, as for the model, before we move on to the agent, here we're saying in the last sentence that it doesn't make big decisions. That's the workflow. We said, guys, that if you have an LLM connected to tools, then you can call it an agentic system. But what kind of agentic system is it? Is it a workflow or is it an agent? No, this type is a workflow because the decisions the LLM makes are very simple. They don't exceed 10%. But now let's talk about the agent, the AI agent. The AI agent, guys, is basically the same thing. I have an LLM and it's also connected to tools, but here the LLM can make decisions on its own to reach a specific goal, meaning that while the code is running, the LLM can make dynamic decisions in real time. Meaning while the code is running. So here, the decisions made in the case of the agent approach, 80%. That means the entire flow of the program is determined by the mood or thinking of the LLM, as long as it ultimately reaches the goal you want. That's why we say here that the process of the AI agent is not fixed. It's not something predetermined. You have a process, but you can't define exactly what it is. You don't know which path the LLM will take you down. So the agent interacts with its environment, then adjusts itself, and then makes a plan to figure out exactly where it needs to go to achieve your goal. All right, why should you know the difference between a workflow and an agent? Let's see here. Of course, distinguishing between an AI agent and a workflow is very important because most of the AI agents being built these days are actually, in reality, a workflow is not an AI agent because most of the time you are already specifying to the LLM what exactly it should do. So you don't let it make decisions on its own. You're already telling it exactly what to do, but a true agent is the one that has autonomy, like self-driving cars. Self-driving cars, in the end, are AI agents because they can interact with their environment and make decisions on their own and act for the safety of the driver inside. That's what we call an AI agent. So to sum up, guys, the agentic system has two types. There's the workflow and there's the AI agent. That's why Anthropic says that both workflow and agent are agentic systems. This is exactly what we just said, but what's between them? There's a very fine line. What is that fine line? In a workflow, automation is very limited. The decisions that the LLM makes on its own don't exceed, say, 10%. But in an agent, the decisions made autonomously go beyond 80%. So the system thinks and makes decisions to ultimately get you to your goal. And that's the difference between them, so that, God willing, when you're asked about these things later, you'll know exactly what to say. So you'll really know whether you're building an agent or a workflow and what the difference is between them. I know I'm going to take a bit longer on this topic. You'll be exposed to 4 or 5 videos, but this is for your own good. Make sure of that. It's for your benefit. When it comes to applications, you'll find the topic is very easy. There's nothing difficult about it. You'll be able to build any application easily. But from the courses I've seen about AI agents, most people don't even care about the theory behind AI agents. But I think it's really important that you do. You need to understand the theory so you can develop further and build powerful applications. I won't make the video any longer than this. Peace be upon you and God's mercy.